As I build my coaching business, I want to know how to effectively serve clients and make more money doing it. This podcast will pull back the curtain to reveal exactly how successful coaches are building their empires. Join me as I engage with top coaches from all over the world to discover their secrets. No theatrics and no theory, just real life strategy. My name is William Winterton, and this is Coaching Success Radio.
Hey, welcome to Coaching Success Radio. It's William Winterton, and today I am super excited to bring on a very special guest into the program. This is Mark Mawhinney. He's known by many as the coach's coach, and his passion is really helping coaches to build their business and to grow their companies and just kind of get out of their own way so they can develop their own coaching style and coaching business out of that. He is a podcast coach of the Natural Born Coaches podcast. He's also got the Mark Mawhinney Minute, which is available through Alexa. He's got a Facebook group called the Coaching Jungle. Wildly successful and a really great down-to-earth guy. I'm super pleased to have him on the program. Mark, great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, William.
Absolutely. And I met you through the Coaching Jungle Facebook group, and just kind of getting my own program started. I threw a message out, said, hey, Mark, just on a whim, would you be interested in coming in and speaking? And like an hour later, he writes back and said, sure, let's figure something out. So super
Yes.
thrilled.
Well, thank you. I unless it was a podcast that was extremely obscure, like if it was a Grey's Anatomy podcast or something, I'd probably say, no, William, it's not a good fit. We made a joke before we started recording. I said we could talk about Game of Thrones here for it. I'll want to call you William Winterfell. Anyone who watches the show knows that. But yeah, any show that's around coaches and personal development, business and stuff, I'm happy to come on.
Awesome. Well, since I knew you were coming on and I know you have a ton of experience, I actually went ahead and asked a whole bunch of coaches who are in different groups, including the Coaching Jungle, just to say, if you had a moment to talk to Mark, if you had some questions for somebody who's got some success and a nice following of people, what are some of the things you'd like to know? So I got a series of questions. I picked some of the good ones, and I thought I'd just start and bring you in. And the first one, the most forefront question was just, they want to know your story. They want to know how you got started and where coaching started becoming a part of your life.
So it's always tricky to try to condense it down to the, Cliff's Notes version
right.
Because I've been in business 20 years right out of university, or just about 20 years. So in a nutshell, my background is in real estate. I did that for about a decade throughout my 20s. And I didn't know anything about coaching back then. I was approached by a coach once and I brushed him away because I was doing awesome. I thought, why do I need a coach? Look at how well I'm doing. And then everything collapsed with that business. And I was kind of wishing I could hop in a DeLorean and go back and, hire that coach, because things may have ended differently. But anyways, it ended up working out. I had a couple years in the wilderness where I was trying to decide what to do next. And I then clued in and hired several coaches and mentors who helped me back on my feet. So this was now early 2014, and I wanted to get back into business. I knew that it wasn't going to be real estate. I just didn't want to do that anymore. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to get into coaching where I've benefited from it? So things have changed a lot from the days when I didn't know about coaching. Now I've experienced it. It picked me back up on my feet and helped me make a comeback in life. And since early 2014, I've been coaching and having a ball, having a good time.
Awesome. So whenever you first started in coaching, and kind of getting you into that world, because it's a very different world. I come from a real estate background as well.
Yeah.
The world of real estate and those investments and transactions and dealing with, all that stuff versus the coaching world. Can you kind of walk me through how you're able to transition out of one mindset to another?
Well, you being from a real estate background, it can be a little bit cutthroat in that world. And there's a saying that in real estate, the nice ones stab you in the front. So yeah. Not saying everyone's dancing around singing Kumbaya in the coaching world, because there's still egos and competition and stuff, but it's a little different. If I get a coaching client, William, you're not down in Arizona grumbling that I took food off your plate or whatever, as opposed to a small real estate community where if you get business, other people are grumbling and talking bad about you for it. So, right. But with coaching, when I first started, I didn't have any niche. I basically said, I want to coach entrepreneurs because I love entrepreneurs. I don't think they get the credit that they deserve. And what I realized through that first year was I would have to narrow that down because that was just too broad. And again, to make a long story short, I had of my clients, several of them that were coaches and not the bricks and mortar clients. And I much preferred working with those coaches, not to knock Joe from Joe's Widgets, but I just had a lot more fun. I clicked with the coaches and I said, I'm going to put my flag in the ground and work solely with coaches. And even to this day, I refer other leads that come to me, prospects that aren't coaches. I'll refer them off to a business coach who can help them, but I only work with coaches and I stay in my lane there.
Excellent. So if you could do anything differently in getting started, like you said, you had that first year of kind of out in the wilderness. If there was something you could do differently to get you maybe further along than where you are now, what would be something you would change back when you first got going?
Well, this is probably going to sound arrogant, but I wouldn't really change much. I think I was benefited from having the background in real estate because I started my real estate career when I was 21, had no money. I looked about 15 years old, 16 years old at the time. And it was about 6 months of just really busting my ass to get my real estate business going. And I was priming the pump. And then once it started rolling, it got going. The advantage for phase two, when I was in my coaching life and starting my coaching business, is I kind of told myself, Mark, you know what it takes to get a business going. Be patient, just do the work, put the work in and it'll come. So that was one thing I think that it really helped to have that business before and that experience, because I wasn't one of these people, in the coaching world, people who hop in and they expect to make 7 figures in a month or something. I knew that wasn't going to happen. I was just going to stick with it and do my thing. The other reason that, well, there are a whole bunch of different things I could talk about there with what I would change different. I don't know. I threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick. So what had happened was I didn't have access to the resources that I had back in my real estate days because I was coming off a business closure a few years earlier, which I thought was bad at the time. I thought it was a disadvantage because I couldn't pay for ads and all this fancy stuff. But that was actually an advantage because it forced me to do things organically, to roll up my sleeves and to create a lot of content and stuff. And it ended up being a positive because it got my message. My voice was worked out a lot sooner because I was doing so much creation for the content. I wasn't doing what a lot of coaches do. They come in and they spend tens of thousands of dollars on Facebook ads or ninja funnels and all this stuff. I couldn't do that. And so it was actually a good thing. And the other lesson in there would be, don't always, something happens, look for the silver lining. It could actually be a good thing.
That's great. That's a great point. How much do you think over the course of building this then, did your network actually play a part of it? And like you said, you didn't have a lot of money and resource. So coming from a real estate background and a business background, not from coaching, and building that network, how much did that actually play into getting you to where you are today?
Well, the podcast was a big help, Natural Born Coaches. So when I started my show in 2014, it was a daily show. So the episodes and the interviews added up really quickly, right? When you're doing a daily show, the first 300 episodes were daily. Now we're up over 600 and some, but that got my foot in a lot of doors that otherwise I wouldn't have, just because of that. So I would have to credit the podcast with being a really big part of getting my business going with network. But obviously, what's that saying? Your network is your net worth is related to your network. And I think that that's true. Definitely. You can't be on an island by yourself. If you try to do everything by yourself, and it's just not going to work. So I've met some really awesome people who've been keen on collaborating. And that's the reason I love having an online coaching business where I'm not limited geographically. So I'm on the East Coast of Canada. It's a smallish city. It's not huge, but it's a little sandbox, right? With the online world, I can connect with you in Arizona. Most of my clients are in the US, and I've worked with people overseas and stuff like that. But I always felt a little bit claustrophobic back in my real estate days because I had to stick to a small radius, small area. Now I'm not limited. I don't do any local meetings or clients. It's all virtual people from away. And I like that very much.
That's awesome. That's great. So it is. It's just, it's totally blown the world open, being able to just, like you said, live up in Canada, live in Arizona, wherever. And it's just a very flat earth now, right? I mean, we don't have to try and figure out how we're going to make these connections. So would you say now that somebody who's just getting started in this, and let's say they're not interested at all in doing a podcast, like that crap out of them, they're not sure, they're in the same spot you were, right? They don't have a ton of money to do ads. They don't have a ton of resources. They don't have a ton of experience. What would be something to kind of get them going and get them kind of feeling like, okay, I'm actually going to make some traction in this business?
Well, I'm really big on choosing just a few things to do and then focus on them. So the problem with online are there's hundreds of things people are saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. And what most coaches end up doing is they try to do everything, but they can't focus. And it's like trying to start a fire if you have a magnifying glass, but you keep moving it around the hay pile. You don't let the sun shine in any one place. It doesn't work. So I always say, try different things, and what you're looking for, there's two criteria. First of all, something you enjoy doing, what you should settle on, because if you don't enjoy doing it, you're not going to stick with it consistently. So for example, one of the things I do, daily emails to my list. If I didn't like writing, daily emails wouldn't be a really good thing. So you want to enjoy what you're doing, but the second part is obviously it has to work. So the example that I use is, let's say that my favorite thing in the world to do for business is to open up my window on the second floor of my house and yell out at passersby in the neighborhood, hire me, hire me. Right. That could be my favorite thing in the world to do. I look forward to it every day, but that probably doesn't meet the criteria of actually working. I might get one or two clients by fluke or something in my lifetime that way. That's not going to happen. So you have to enjoy doing it, so you'll stick with it consistently, but obviously it has to work as well. And I say pick three pillars. The three pillars for my business, in no particular order, are podcasting. So that's my show, and then going out on shows like this one. The other one is Facebook, especially the Facebook group. I'm really big on Facebook groups. And then email marketing with daily emails. So if I know if I'm doing podcasting, Facebook, in the Facebook group, and then daily emails, I'm good. So I still do other things, but that's where I get a lot of my clients from.
So let's talk a little bit about some, I know that you've just got, your business is going great and everything like that, but then balancing that with your personal life and trying to balance a growing business, podcasts, emails, and keeping all this stuff. What's the system you use to kind of keep that all in check?
What's a personal life? No, I'm just kidding. Well, it's an interesting question because this year I'm taking steps to improve work-life balance. So the thing with me is I've struggled with workaholism, and I blame my real estate background, because in real estate, you've got your phone to your ear 24/7. You're working every day of the week. Somebody wants to see a house or list their house, you're racing to go get that business, or they may go elsewhere. So with the coaching world, of course, you can have more flexibility the way it's set up, but there's still some of those bad habits ingrained in me. And this year I've been working really hard. I hired a sales team to handle my sales calls. I'm doing some things I have a Facebook Messenger bot guy who's doing some stuff for me. I have a twin brother. He's been editing my podcast, him and his team, since 2015. So that's great. I have a VA team in the Philippines. So I'm doing these things as I'm growing to make sure that it doesn't, I don't want to burn out. And I've never burned out in my life, but I've heard enough stories from coaches who have burnout. They're flying high, they're go, 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 and then all of a sudden, bang, they hit a wall. And I don't want that to happen. So I'm doing little things like social media. I'm setting barriers for time. I'm not staying on social media till midnight, or it's not the first thing I'm looking at in the morning at 5 a.m. when I wake up, because that's not healthy either.
So really having a firm balance in your life just means farming out the stuff that you don't have to do to people that can do it probably better than you, and then just bring time a little bit.
Well, for me, like I mentioned, content creation is an important part of what I do. I would never farm that out because people can't write in my voice. I enjoy the content creation, but I had to realize that there are some things that move off my plate because I do so much content creation and writing and podcasts and everything else. So I would never want to work a 4-hour work week. I would go crazy. But I also don't think it's sustainable to be working 120 hours a week your whole life. So you got to find that balance. I would lean a little more towards that Gary Vaynerchuk way instead of Tim Ferriss. But I also don't want to be Gary's a little too hardcore, Gary and Grant Cardone and stuff. Like if you're not on the phone when you're in the shower, or you're not working on business plans on your shower wall, you're a slacker. You're not hustling hard enough. It's like, holy.
I just feel like I don't drop enough F-bombs to be one of those guys. Like I gotta be more of that person, I guess. I don't know. It's just not, but I get the content of what they're offering. But yeah, I think it's just gotta be a personal balance. And so I was really interested in knowing kind of, you've got all these people helping you, and I'm just wondering now, do you have a coach that you actually work with who coaches you?
At any time, I'm usually working with at least one, not a life coach per se. I can't recall ever hiring a life coach, but I hired a coach to help me with a program rollout for laser coaching. I just introduced a laser coaching package, 15-minute coaching calls with clients and stuff. And I hired Rob Goyette, and I'll get a shout out for Rob, but Rob was great. He helped me set that up. And then at times I'll work with a book coach, for example, or something like that. But I think you make a really good point. There are a lot of coaches who I think are struggling because they've never actually experienced coaches helping them, or they're not willing to open their wallets to invest in their business. But then they're wondering why people aren't willing to open up their wallets and invest with their services. Right. If you're not willing to spend money on your own personal development, your own business, don't be surprised when people don't hire you.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Yeah, it's just it's gotta also feed you. You gotta keep somebody, just to keep you in check as well, because as a coach, we certainly don't know everything, right? Even though that's we may be a life coach, but then our own life is still kind of chaotic, right? So
yeah, exactly. It's always easier to coach other people than ourselves. We're a little too close to the situation, and we can't see the forest for the trees. So that's where other coaches come in and help, and it helps keep you a little bit grounded too, because what happened to me in my 20s is I started to believe my own press and hype that I could do no wrong, because I had never experienced any failure. Every year my revenues were shooting up and up and up and up, and they kept going. And I thought, okay, well, I can never fail. And then all of a sudden, bang, I failed. And it's like, what the heck's going on here? This isn't supposed to happen.
Right. Okay, so I have a couple more questions for you. I'm just interested, again, I know we never really arrive anywhere, but you certainly have systems in place and are doing very well and having some great success and clearly helping a lot of people out. I'd like to know, for the next few years and what you have planned is, what are your major goals? What is the Mark Mawhinney goals for the next few years, and what are you really hoping to try and hit here?
It's funny, not saying that I don't set goals, because I do think goals are important, but those can change too, right, over time. So I have certain income goals. I mean, my next I want to hit the 7-figure mark. I know a lot of people hear 7 figures, they throw up in their mouth a little bit because of these cheesy marketers online with the rented mansions and yachts and stuff. But hey, I do want to take my business to past the 7-figure mark. So that's it. I want to continue growing the team where I've brought people on, and I want to do a little bit more of that, because right now I've made steps in the right direction, but I'll still need to grow the team if I want to hit my goals with it. But I don't know. I'm just enjoying the ride, to be honest with you. So I think goals are important, but I think that sometimes people get a little bit too goal. We talked about Gary Vaynerchuk before, because Gary, how many times has he talked about buying the New York Jets? Right. Which, okay, it's great that you have a goal that gets you out in the morning and stuff like that, but that owner may never want to sell to him. Well, what if he doesn't get the New York Jets? I think he's going to be feeling a little bit depressed with that. Like, it's good to have different goals as well, not just one sole focus. Look, I don't know, are you into the Marvel movies?
Yes.
No spoilers here, but look at Thanos, snaps his finger, achieves his goal, then what?
Right. Right. Exactly. And I think in more of a general sense, it's just knowing that, a goal can certainly change, but there's always a direction. We're always going towards something, right? And it's a moving target. But as long as you're thinking like, okay, I would really like to be at this point down the road, and just kind of seeing into that, that's a great window into seeing where somebody's heart is right now. Like, if they're just like, look, I'm good where I'm at, and that's awesome, then that's fantastic.
Well, the problem with the coaching world, I find, is that coaches are afraid to admit that they want to make money, and they act like they don't want the money. And that's why I laugh when I mentioned 7 figures. Some people might look at me like I'm Gordon Gekko or J.R. Ewing or something. I'm very open. I'm like, I love money. There's some Mother Teresa coaches that think you should be coaching barefoot in Calcutta and you can't ever mention money, and it's always doing it for the good of the world and all that stuff. Don't get me wrong. I want to make a big impact. I mean, I look at the Napoleon Hills of the world, who almost 100 years after he wrote Think and Grow Rich, it's still impacting people and stuff. That's awesome. But I also am not afraid to admit that I love money, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think there are a lot of coaches that are suppressing that because they think it's not the right thing to say. So that's all you're hearing. I want to change the world. Oh, I don't care about money. Put your wallet away. It's all about changing lives and stuff. I'm like, you can combine the two.
Absolutely. And I would argue with you that, yeah, if you're really going to change the world, you got to have money to do it. I mean, it's a harder road to make an impact if you're broke. I mean, that's just all there is.
There's a great saying I heard once that says, hard to light up the world if you can't pay your light bill.
That's exactly.
Or what I say you can't coach on an empty stomach. So if you got bill collectors calling while you're on Skype or Zoom with a client and you hear the phone going, it's a bill collector. That's a tough position to be in. Or you got your rent or mortgage coming up in a few days. You have no money to pay it. And you're not going to be making the best choices for who to work with if that's the case.
Right. It's exactly. Wonderful. Well, awesome. I want to be able to give you an opportunity to let people know. Clearly, there's the podcast and there's the Facebook group. But what's really the kind of the best way to reach you or to get some training? I know you have courses kind of all over the place. What would you suggest?
Well, naturalborncoaches.com is the central hub for everything. .coachingjungle.com will take them to the Facebook group. So thank you for being in there, William. So .coachingjungle.com. Right now, I'm really excited about my 10 clients in 90 days program. That's my flagship offering, and that's 10clients90days.com. And that's the numeric 10 and the numeric 90 in that URL.
Awesome. And I want to just also give a shout out to your Facebook group, because I am a member of a variety of Facebook groups, but what I really like is that it seems that group is really managed very well. Could you just for a second just speak about that, about if somebody does, there's a movement about, if I have my own Facebook group, that's a great way to get clients and a great way to get people and build up your network and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of behind the scenes to that too. Could you just talk for a minute about kind of what it is to run a group of 15,000 on a Facebook group?
Well, I would say get some help. So I have Cody and the team are handling a lot of the admin, but I waited too long to do that. So early on, I had a couple admin, but they were volunteers, so they weren't able to really stay on top of it. And I don't blame them because they weren't getting paid, right? It was a volunteer position. I hired Cody in Cody's team in early 2018. And right away, it was like 100 pounds off my shoulders. I could just relax because our group the Coaching Jungle is really good for the number of people, 16,000 some people. There's not a lot of spam. But that being said, that there is some spam that goes up there. And the danger once some starts to slip through there is that it ends up kind of festering because people think, oh, well, they left William's post up on the wall with his sale or promotion, so I can put mine up there, and then it gets out of hand. So you have to operate your Facebook group very tight. And I say you almost have to be like a dictator in a small little banana republic, and you have to set rules and then enforce the rules. And I know some people sometimes thought that we're too tight on it, but I've seen groups that have devolved into just a mess like Spam City. So we're very careful about the rules being followed and, keep the promotions in the theme threads and stuff like that.
Well, and I think everybody who's on there for the right reason really appreciates that as well, because again, you want to be in a group where you're actually getting some value out of it and not just being pitched every time you turn around. So.
Yeah, exactly. I was in a group a few years ago. I won't say which one. It used to be a really good group, but the admins took their eye off the ball and they just stopped checking it. And really quickly, it just became a mess. It was unusable. Sure. The wall was just nonstop home shopping network type stuff. There weren't a lot of real conversations going on. So that being said, you don't have to have your own group. I mean, I have my own group, but you can do very well in other people's groups. And the advice I'd give there is be patient. If you get into a group with your target clients, help people answer questions, stuff like that, obey the group's rules, which I think is important. And I find after about 30 days or so, you're going to start to get some traction, get people reaching out to you, and you'll be recognized as an expert. People get to know, like, and trust you. So you don't have to do it with your own group because that can be a lot of work, but find a couple groups that have your target clients in it and then do those things.
Perfect. Mark, this has been an absolute pleasure. If there's anything that I didn't ask you that you'd love to just say really quickly, I'd love to just give you the final word.
Oh, boys. Well, we'll take the last minute, talk about Game of Thrones. We'll spoil it for everyone. No, I'm just kidding. You know what? This touches on the theme, I guess it's been throughout this interview, but it's to be patient. I find that there are too many coaches that think it's a get rich quick. They jump in, they try something, doesn't work the first time or two, they try it, so then they're off to something else. And I think it's important to get help from people who are legit, know what they're doing, but to also be patient. It's a marathon and not a sprint. And there's far too many coaches that are treating it like a sprint, and then they're in and then they're out. And that's not good. So be patient and it'll come. If you do the work, of course. When I say be patient, I don't mean just sit on the couch all day and try to manifest it or anything. You got to do the work.
Brilliant. Mark, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for jumping on here. And I'd love to have you as a guest sometime in the future.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, William.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in and checking us out. New episodes are coming out every few days, including lots of conversations with massively successful coaches sharing their secrets with you. So be sure to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel so that you don't miss out. And if you're looking for a way to start making serious money from your coaching, you need to check out my free training. It's at williamwinterton.com. I lay out the step-by-step on how to start making 5 figures a month in the next 60 days. Check it out, williamwinterton.com. I'll see you next time.